What is an archipelago?
An archipelago is a chain, or group, of islands that are close to one another. The Aleutian Islands of Alaska and the Hawaiian Islands are both archipelagos. They are usually formed by plates pushing into one another or by volcanic activity.
How did the League of Nations fail?
The League of Nations, which was created in 1920 and replaced by the United Nations in 1945, failed in its mission to prevent World War II. Even though the League was essentially the creation of President Woodrow Wilson, the isolationist United States never became a member.
Why are so many ships registered in Liberia?
Though most are owned by foreign corporations and spend little time in Liberian territorial waters, many ships register in Liberia because of its low fees for registering ocean vessels. Over 1,600 ships are registered there, giving Liberia one of the world's largest merchant fleets.
What is the deepest lake in the United States?
Crater Lake in Oregon, lying within the collapsed crater of an ancient volcano, is the nation's deepest lake at 1,932 feet, 589 meters. Crater Lake has no feeder streams. It is filled solely by precipitation.
How many people are killed in the United States by lightning?
Approximately 73 people die each year after being struck by lightning. The highest death rates are in Florida. 425 killed between 1959 and 2003. The U.S. total from 1959 to 2003 is 3,696 deaths. This means that about 80 people die each year from lightning, and about 300 are injured annually.
What is Devil's Island?
Devil's Island, located off the coast of French Guiana, became the overseas prison of France in the middle of the 19th century. France stopped using the island as a penal colony in 1938.
What cities have the most crime in the United States?
According to major rankings, Detroit, Michigan, Camden, New Jersey, St. Louis, Missouri, and Oakland, California have the most crime.
What is a jungle?
A jungle is a forest that is composed of very dense vegetation. The term tropical rainforest can often be used interchangeably with jungle. Jungles occur most often in tropical areas such as the Amazon and Congo River basins.
Why does a firstborn son get everything?
Primogeniture is the system of inheritance in which all inheritable land and property is passed on to the firstborn son. A common worldwide tradition, primogeniture enabled a family's possessions and status to remain intact as they were passed from generation to generation. This practice of the entire inheritances benefiting only the firstborn son resulted in subsequent sons needing to find alternative livelihoods.
Is Scotland a country?
While Scotland does have limited self-rule, it is still part of the country of the United Kingdom. Scotland occupies the northern portion of the island of Great Britain.
Where is the Bible Belt?
The Bible Belt, a region noted for its high proportion of fundamentalist Christian beliefs, is located in the southern and midwestern United States, running from about Oklahoma to the Carolinas.
Who are the Maori?
The Maori are the indigenous inhabitants of New Zealand. Around the 9th century, the Maori arrived in New Zealand from other Pacific islands. In 1769 there were over 100,000 Maori, but their population decreased significantly to 40,000 by the end of the 19th century, due to European colonization. In the 20th century, the Maori population has expanded to 632,000 in New Zealand, with another 73,000 living in Australia. Maoris now comprise 15% of New Zealand's population.
What is the lowest point on dry land?
The world's lowest point is still the Dead Sea shoreline. At approximately 1,378 feet, 420 meters, below sea level.
What is a tsunami?
A tsunami, also known as a seismic sea wave, is usually caused by an earthquake that occurs under the ocean or near the coast. The seismic energy creates a large wave. that can cause heavy damage hundreds or even thousands of miles from its source. Hawaii is frequently struck by tsunamis.
What is the longest river in the United States?
The Missouri-Mississippi River is the longest in the United States. Approximately 3,860 miles, 6,211 kilometers, in length.
What is the capital of Australia?
The capital of Australia is Canberra, which is located in a federal territory, similar to Washington, D.C., within the Australian state of New South Wales. When Australia was founded in 1901, both Sydney and Melbourne wanted to become the capital city. In 1908 it was ultimately decided that a brand new capital city would be built and located away from the coast. Canberra is the largest city in Australia that is not on the coastline, population 334,000.
What is the world's longest subway system?
The world's first subway system is also the world's longest in operation. Since 1863, when it used steam-powered trains, the London Underground is now 244 miles. 393 kilometers, long and uses electricity to power the trains.
What does an earthquake feel like?
Smaller earthquakes or tremors feel disorienting at first. You feel a sense that the room is spinning, as if you are becoming dizzy. Usually preceding an earthquake, when the initial tremors hit, you can hear the sounds of things rattling that you have never heard before, like glasses rubbing against each other and windows vibrating. With larger earthquakes, as the earth nearby tears or opens, you can hear a very loud rumbling sound that is similar to a train driving by.
How can a gazetteer help me find latitude and longitude?
A gazetteer is an index that lists the latitude and longitude of places within a specific region or across the entire world. Many atlases include a gazetteer, and some are published separately.
What are the British Isles?
The British Isles are composed of the two large islands of Great Britain and Ireland, separated by St. George's Channel, and the many small islands nearby. The British Isles include two countries, the United Kingdom and Ireland.
What makes a piece of paper a map?
No matter what the medium, all maps must be a representation of an area of the Earth. Celestial bodies, or space. Though maps are commonly printed on paper, they can come in a variety of forms. From being drawn in the sand to being viewed on computers. A map should have a legend, a guide explaining the map symbols. A notation of which way is north, and an indicator of scale. No map is perfect and every map is unique.
What was the Industrial Revolution?
The Industrial Revolution began in the 18th century in England with the transformation from an agricultural-based economy to an industrial-based economy. It was a period of increased development in industry and mechanization that improved manufacturing and agricultural processes, thereby allowing more people to move to the cities. It included the development of the steam engine and the railroad.
Which countries have the fewest neighbors?
All island nations, such as Australia, New Zealand, Madagascar, etc., have no neighbors. Haiti, Dominican Republic, Papua New Guinea, Ireland, UK, and many others are island nations that share an island.
What is a 100-year flood?
A 100-year flood refers not only to the size of a flood, but also to the odds of it occurring. A 100-year flood has a 1%, or 1 in 100, chance of occurring in any given year. It has no relationship to the frequency of occurrence. The magnitude of such a flood is relative to the frequency of occurrence. So a 100-year flood is much larger than any run-of-the-mill annual flood. A 500-year flood only has a 1 in 500, 0.2%. chance of occurring in any given year and would be much larger and more devastating than a 100-year flood.
What is the continental divide?
The continental divide is simply the line that divides the flow of water in North America. Precipitation east of the divide flows towards the Atlantic Ocean, while precipitation west of the divide flows towards the Pacific Ocean. The divide follows the line of the highest ranges of the Rocky Mountains and is not a distinct mountain range.
When were the first roads built?
Archaeologists have found remnants of early roads in Ur. Iraq, and Glastonbury, Scotland, dating back to 4000 B.C.E.
When did the Chinese Empire begin naval exploration?
During the Song dynasty, 960-1270 C.E., the Chinese began to build seafaring trade ships. It was during the Yuan dynasty, 1271-1368 CE, that Chinese traders began to appear in the ports of Ceylon, Sri Lanka, India, and as far west as Africa. They were seeking goods for the royal kingdom, such as spices, ivory, medicine, and tropical woods.
Whose body was preserved and then hand-carried for 9 months to the coast of Africa?
Dr. David Livingstone, the world-famous explorer of Africa, died while exploring the area now known as Zambia. His body was embalmed with sand and his heart was buried under a nearby tree. His body was then wrapped in cloth and covered with tar to waterproof it. Loyal servants carried his body for 9 months, all the way to the eastern coast of Africa, where the body was then transported to Britain on the HMS Vulture. On April 18, 1874, his body was buried in Westminster Abbey.
What does a canal lock do?
Many canals connect two bodies of water that lie at different elevations. Locks are used to gradually move the ships from one elevation to another. Once a ship enters a lock, doors close in front of and behind it. Water is then added or drained from the area to raise or lower the ship to a different elevation. Then the doors in front of the ship open and the ship sails down the canal to the next lock or to the open sea.
What's the difference between Greenwich Mean Time, Universal Coordinated Time, and Zulu Time?
Greenwich Mean Time, GMT, Universal Coordinated Time, UTC, and Zulu Time are three different names for the same time zone. This time zone is situated at the prime meridian, 0 degrees longitude, and runs through the Royal Observatory at Greenwich, a section of London, England. It is the prime meridian from which other longitudes are determined, east and west.
What is the leading cause of death in the United States?
Approximately 1/3 of all Americans die from cardiovascular disease, making it the country's leading cause of death. Cancers are the second leading cause of death in America, killing over 1/4 of the population.
who disguised himself as a Muslim to travel to Mecca.
Since non-Muslims are not allowed into the sacred city of Mecca, British explorer Sir Richard Francis Burton disguised himself as an Afghan pilgrim in order to enter the city in 1853. Burton, having learned various languages in the military, explored India, the Middle East, Africa, and South America. Also a prolific writer, Burton published many accounts of his journeys, and is perhaps most famous for translating 1001 Arabian Nights into English.
What is the origin of the word monsoon?
The word monsoon comes from the Arabic word mawzin, meaning season.
Which country is the world's leading lead producer?
Australia produces approximately 23.5% of the world's lead annually. Most of the lead is mined near Mt Isa in the northeast area of the country and near Broken Hill in the southeast.
What is the largest church building in the world?
The Mormon Church LDS Conference Center in Salt Lake City, Utah, is the largest church building, having over 1.4 million square feet, 130,000 square meters.
How did Israel become a country?
European Jews, who had been persecuted for centuries in Europe, began to emigrate to the area we know as Palestine in the late 19th century. These new immigrants purchased land and set up communities in the vast desert and coastal areas. This area, which was under British administration, began to see a new influx of European Jews in the early part of the 20th century. After World War I, the United Kingdom issued the Balfour Declaration, which accepted the establishment of a Jewish state in present-day Palestine. At the time, Palestine was not comprised of countries, but was merely a collection of territories ruled by colonial powers such as the United Kingdom, France, and the United States. After World War II, hundreds of thousands of European Jews emigrated to the region, enough to cause the Arab community to revolt and riot against them. At this time, nearly 33% of all people in Palestine were Jewish. Jewish paramilitary groups increasingly fought against British occupying forces. The United Nations recognized Jerusalem as an international city for both Arabs and Jews, and it approved an interim plan to divide Palestine into Arab and Jewish states. The Jewish authorities accepted the plan, but new Arab countries that formed after World War I and World War II did not. One day before the British mandate of control over the Palestine region expired in May 1948. The State of Israel was proclaimed.
What is the difference between a country and a nation?
Many people use the terms country and nation interchangeably. But not all nations are countries, nor are all countries nations. A country is the equivalent of a state, and is a political entity. A nation is a group of people with a common heritage and culture. Some nations have a state and are thus called a nation-state. Nation-states include France, Germany, Japan, China, and the United States. Some nations have no state, such as the Kurds and Palestinians. Some states have multiple nations such as Belgium, which is composed of two nations, the Flemings and Walloons.
Where are Egypt's pyramids?
The most famous group of pyramids in Egypt is located near the city of Giza, which is just outside of Cairo. This group includes the Great Pyramid, which is known as one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. The pyramids in Egypt served as tombs for pharaohs and were built from the 27th to the 10th century BCE. Other pyramids are located along the Nile River in southern Egypt and the northern Sudan. Approximately 70 pyramids remain in the region.
What does the word geography mean?
The word geography is of Greek origin and can be divided into 2 parts. Geo, meaning the earth, and graphy, which refers to writing. So geography can be loosely translated to writing about the earth. Ancient geography was often descriptions of far-away places. But modern geography has become much more than writing about the earth. Contemporary geographers have a difficult time defining the discipline. Some of my favorite definitions include the bridge between the human and the natural sciences, the mother of all sciences, and anything that can be mapped.
Where are cyberspace and the Internet?
Cyberspace is not space in the old-fashioned sense of the word at all. The Internet is composed of millions of computers around the world, which are connected to each other in order to provide information across cyberspace as though there were no global boundaries, mountain passes, or oceans to cross. When you send email to a friend on the other side of the planet, it passes from your computer to that of your internet service provider and then from computer to computer, making its way to your friend in a matter of seconds. Similarly, when you access a page on the World Wide Web, Your computer tells another computer which tells another computer that you want such and such document delivered to your computer, and it arrives in seconds. Some geographers measure and map cyberspace by looking at where most of the internet's traffic flows, though, to and from.
How dry is Antarctica?
Though Antarctica is covered with ice, it is the driest continent on the planet. The ice in Antarctica has been there for thousands of years, and the continent receives less than 2 inches. 5 centimeters of precipitation annually. The Sahara Desert receives 10 inches, 25 centimeters, each year.
What are the horse latitudes?
These high-pressure regions, more formally known as subtropic highs, are warm and don't have much wind. Legend has it that the lack of wind sometimes caused sailors of the 16th and 17th centuries to throw their horses overboard in an effort to conserve water on board. That's how the region, centered around 30 degrees latitude, got its name.
What role did Russia play in World War II?
Russia was the target of Germany's war machine on its eastern front. More people were killed during Germany's war with Russia, 30 million people, 20 million of whom were civilians. Lost their lives between 1941 and 1945 than in all other theaters of World War II combined. Without the active participation of the Russian military against the Nazis, the outcome of the war in Europe may have been drastically different.
What is Russia's official name?
The official name of Russia is the Russian Federation. It consists of 83 federal subjects, including 46 provinces, 21 republics, 9 territories, 4 autonomous districts, 1 administrative sector, and 2 federal districts, Moscow and St. Petersburg.
Why is the sky blue?
This is one of the world's most frequently pondered questions, and contrary to what some people believe, the sky's blue color is not due to the reflection of water. Light from the sun is composed of the spectrum of colors. When sunlight strikes the Earth's atmosphere, ultraviolet and blue waves of light are the most easily scattered by particles in the atmosphere. So, other colors of light continue to the Earth while blue and ultraviolet waves remain in the sky. Our eyes can't see ultraviolet light, so the sky appears the only color remaining that we can see, blue.
How big was the largest hailstone?
In 2003, a hailstone was recovered near Aurora, Nebraska. With a diameter of 18.75 inches, 47.63 centimeters. The previous record was in 1970, when people recovered a hailstone with a 17.5 inches. 44.45 centimeters, diameter in Kansas.
Where is the Outback?
The outback is the general term used to describe the remote interior of Australia. Most of Australia's population is concentrated on the coast. Since the interior is extremely dry and barren.
What is the world's largest island?
The world's largest island is Greenland, technically now known as Kalaallit Nunaat. Greenland is located in the North Atlantic Ocean near Canada. It is a territory of Denmark but has locally governed itself since 1979. It is approximately 840,000 square miles, 2,175,600 square kilometers. Australia, while it also meets the usual definition of an island, surrounded by water, and is larger than Greenland, is not considered an island but a continent.
Where is Dum Dum Airport?
Each year, over 2.5 million passengers pass through. Dum Dum International Airport in Kolkata, Calcutta, India.
What are some of the most expensive cities in the world?
Half of the top 10 most expensive cities in the world are in Europe: London, England; Copenhagen, Denmark; Geneva, Switzerland; Zurich, Switzerland; and Oslo, Norway.
How much beef does Australia export?
Australia is responsible for more than 26% of the world's beef exports, 1,203,000 metric tons.
What is the world's largest gulf?
The Gulf of Mexico, which is approximately 600,000 square miles. 1.5 million square kilometers, is the world's largest gulf. The Gulf of Mexico is surrounded by Mexico, the southern coast of the United States, and Cuba, and is connected to the Caribbean Sea in the east.
What are the 7 wonders of the modern world?
According to the American Society of Civil Engineers, the 7 wonders of the modern world include the Channel Tunnel between England and France, the CN Tower in Toronto, Canada, the Empire State Building, New York, the Golden Gate Bridge, San Francisco, the Itaipu Dam between Brazil and Paraguay, the Netherlands North Sea Protection Works, and the Panama Canal.
What is South Korea's national slogan?
The national slogan of South Korea is the land of the morning calm.
What is the purpose of NATO now that the Soviet Union is gone?
The North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, was founded in 1949 as an alliance of European and North American non-communist countries committed to preventing and protecting against communist threats. With relative stability in the former Soviet Union, now the Commonwealth of Independent States, NATO sees its role purely as defensive in nature, supporting member states and countries in need of assistance in the surrounding regions.
What is the Great Wall of China made of?
Walking along sections of the Great Wall that have been restored, it is possible to see that it is made of stones and mortar. In other more remote stretches of the wall, it was hastily put together with straw and mud, and in some places even rice and mud. The trick of the builders was to make it just high enough to prevent people or horses from breaching the walls. In some stretches, the wall is only a few meters tall. In other places, it is several stories tall.
What city is known as the Earthquake City?
Charleston, South Carolina, claims the nickname Earthquake City. On August 31, 1886, Charleston suffered from the largest earthquake in history to strike the east coast of the United States. 60 were killed in the quake, which had an estimated Richter magnitude of 6.6.
What do deserts and polar regions have in common?
Deserts and polar regions both have average rainfall of less than 4 inches. 10 centimeters, per year. They are both the driest places on Earth.
What was the first airplane flown?
Orville and Wilbur Wright were the first two people to fly in a heavier-than-air vehicle, called the Flyer. They made their historic flight on December 17, 1903, at Kitty Hawk, North Carolina.
Are there more people or sheep in New Zealand?
There are just over 4 million people in New Zealand, but nearly 56 million sheep. New Zealand has long been a leading exporter of wool.
Where is the farthest point from land?
In the middle of the southern Pacific Ocean lies a spot that is 1,600 miles. 2,574 kilometers, from any land. Located at 47 degrees 30 minutes south, 120 degrees west. This spot is equidistant from Antarctica, Australia, and Pitcairn Island.
What is the oldest continually occupied city in the United States?
St. Augustine, Florida, was founded in 1565 by Spanish explorer Pedro Menéndez de Aviles. St. Augustine is located on Florida's eastern, Atlantic coast and now has a population of approximately 12,000. It is not only the oldest continually occupied city in the United States, but also in all of North America.
What is a coral reef?
Coral reefs are formed by the accumulation of calcium carbonate that comes from the external skeletons of tiny animals called coral polyps. The polyps live in shallow, warm water, and thus congregate around islands in the tropics, where coral reefs are abundant.
What is the highest mountain on Earth?
The highest mountain lies on the Big Island of Hawaii, with a height from the bottom of the seafloor rising 33,474 feet, 10,203 meters, to the top of Mauna Kea, which is a volcano that rises 13,680 feet, 4,170 meters, above sea level.
How many McDonald's restaurants are there in the world?
To some people, McDonald's represents the extreme example of cultural imperialism. An import of one's culture supplanted into another. Today, there are 31,000 McDonald's restaurants located in 119 countries.
Who are Kiwis?
One nickname for a New Zealander is Kiwi. But kiwis are also a flightless bird and a type of fruit found in New Zealand. Kiwi birds, a national icon of New Zealand, have long thin beaks and lay eggs larger in proportion to their body size than any other bird. Most of the world's supply of kiwi fruit is also grown in New Zealand.
What does a glacier leave behind?
When a glacier moves across the land, it acts like a giant bulldozer, pushing and collecting rock, dirt, and debris. A moraine is a deposit of rock and dirt carried by a glacier and left behind once the glacier melts and recedes.
Why was the Vietnam War fought, and what were some of the consequences?
After World War II, Vietnamese nationalists and communists fought the French to gain their freedom from European colonization. Ultimately, the French left Vietnam in shambles, and the former colony divided into the primarily communist-controlled North and the pro-West forces in the South. The United States initially was involved in the war to help its ally France regain control of the colony by sending in advisors and aiding in military supplies. Forces in the South saw the chance to gain American assistance, and they convinced various U.S. administrations to assist in ridding the country of their enemies. In an effort to stem the spread of communism, the United States continued to support South Vietnam until the fall of Saigon in 1975. Ironically, during the height of the Vietnam War in 1970, while Communist Vietnamese were being portrayed as a threat to the American way of life, President Richard Nixon and Secretary of State Henry Kissinger were courting the largest, most radical communist country, the People's Republic of China, to extend relations with the West. China had been funding and supporting militarily Vietnamese resistance against both French and American forces for decades. The American occupation of Vietnam lasted from 1962 to 1975. In 1975, Saigon was overrun by communist forces, and the country was eventually unified under one communist regime. The aftermath and legacy of the war in Vietnam was the destabilization of and genocide in neighboring Laos and Cambodia, which cost millions of lives during the upheaval of the 1970s, as well as the displacement of millions of Vietnamese, some of whom emigrated to the U.S. as boat people.
What is Aotearoa?
Aotearoa is the Maori name for New Zealand. It means the land of the long white cloud.
What was Babylonia?
Babylonia was an ancient country along the Euphrates River, in what is now Iraq. It began in the 21st century BCE and was led by King Hammurabi in the 18th century BCE.
Are there any new discoveries of cities that predate Mesopotamian urban areas?
Every year, scientists uncover evidence of cities long ago flooded by the rising sea and reclamation of coastline, where archaeological evidence suggests cities even older than those in the Sumer Valley once existed. A recent marine archaeological expedition uncovered traces of a city beneath the sea off the coast of Gujarat, in northwestern India, and found pieces of carved wood that was carbon dated to 7500 BCE.
Where do the illegal immigrants come from?
Approximately 57% of illegal immigrants come from Mexico, 11% from Central America, 9% from East Asia, 8% from South America, and 4% from Europe and the Caribbean.
Was San Francisco destroyed by earthquake or by fire in 1906?
In 1906 a very powerful earthquake struck San Francisco, California, which sparked a fire that destroyed much of the city. In an effort to preserve San Francisco's image with residents and would-be visitors, official policy regarding the disaster stated that it was not the earthquake but mostly the fire that destroyed the city. Official books and publications produced after the earthquake referred to both the fire and the earthquake as having caused the damage. In fact, the earthquake did considerable damage to the city and killed hundreds.
What is ethnic cleansing?
Ethnic cleansing is the forced deportation or murder of people in certain ethnic groups within a country or region. Ethnic cleansing has been a part of world history for many millennia. Infamous examples of ethnic cleansing include the mass killings in the former Yugoslavia in the 1990s, the mass killings in Rwanda in 1994, and the Armenian genocide in Turkey in the 1930s.
What is Melanesia?
Located northeast of Australia, Melanesia is a small region that lies south of the equator and west of 180 degrees longitude, but excludes New Zealand. Melanesia includes the countries of Vanuatu and Fiji as well as the Solomon Islands and New Caledonia.
What is the largest landlocked country in the world?
Kazakhstan, which is the ninth largest country in the world, has no outlet to the ocean. It is over 1 million square miles, 2.59 million square kilometers, in area. While Kazakhstan is located adjacent to the Caspian Sea is a landlocked sea.
What was the Oregon Trail?
The Oregon Trail was a 2,000-mile long, 3,200-kilometer long pioneer trail that extended from Independence, Missouri, to Portland, Oregon. Migrants traveled along this trail in an effort to reach and settle the sparsely populated American West. It took migrants approximately 6 months to traverse the Oregon Trail and reach Oregon. The trail was heavily used from the 1840s and subsequent decades. Portions of the trail are still visible today in places such as the Whitman Mission National Historic Site in Washington.
What is Hadrian's Wall?
Hadrian's Wall was built under the direction of the Roman Emperor Hadrian in 122 C. Located in northern Great Britain, it was intended to keep out the Caledonians of Scotland. Built of mud and stone, the wall stretched nearly 75 miles, 120 kilometers. From Solway Firth in the west to the Tyne River in the east, near Newcastle.
Have compasses always pointed north?
No, they have not. Though compasses always point to the magnetic pole has not always been in the north. Every 300,000 to 1 million years, the magnetic pole flips from north to south or from south to north. If compasses had been around before the last time the magnetic pole reversed, their arrows would have pointed south rather than north.
How can a legend help me read a map?
The legend, usually found in a box on the map, is information that explains the symbols used on a map. Though some symbols seem standard, like a railroad line, even those can be represented differently on different maps. Since there really are no standard symbols, each map's legend should be consulted when reading a map.
Where are the Leeward Islands?
The Leeward Islands are also located in the Caribbean and are less exposed to the northeasterlies. Because these islands are lee, or away from the wind, they were named the Leeward Islands. The Leeward Islands include Dominica, Guadeloupe, Montserrat, Antigua, Barbuda, St. Kitts, Nevis, Anguilla, and the Virgin Islands.
What are the sources of air pollution?
Air pollution has two main sources: anthropogenic, man-made, and natural. Man-made sources of pollution include factories, cars, motorcycles, ships, incinerators, wood burning, oil refining, chemicals, consumer product emissions like aerosol sprays and fumes from paint. Methane from garbage in landfills, and pollution from nuclear and biological weapons production and testing. Natural sources of pollution may include dust, methane from human and animal waste, radon gas, smoke from wildfires, and volcanic activity.
What is a topographic map?
A topographic map shows human and physical features of the Earth and can be distinguished from other maps by its great detail and by its contour lines indicating elevation. Topographic maps are excellent sources of detailed information about a very small area of the Earth. The United States Geological Survey, USGS, produces a set of topographic maps for the United States that are at a scale of 1:24,000, 1 inch equaling 2,000 feet or 1 centimeter equaling about 240 kilometers. You can purchase these maps online, at sporting goods stores, or through the USGS itself.
What was Pangea?
Pangea, which existed about 250 million years ago, was one huge continent, including the land of all 7 continents. It was located near present-day Antarctica and has slowly drifted and split to form the continents as we know them today. The continents and their tectonic plates continue to move and will one day be in a much different arrangement than they are today.
How many time zones does the United States have?
The United States spans 9 time zones: Eastern, Central, Mountain, Pacific, Alaska, Hawaii, Aleutian, Samoa, Wake Island, and Guam.
What is the Pan American Highway?
Begun in the 1930s, the Pan American Highway is the result of an international effort to create a highway stretching from Fairbanks, Alaska, to Buenos Aires, Argentina. In 1962, a bridge, known as the Bridge of the Americas, was built over the Panama Canal to continue the highway over the canal. A 100-mile, 161-kilometer, stretch of the highway in eastern Panama still remains unfinished.
What is the Royal Flying Doctor Service?
Created in 1928, the Royal Flying Doctor Service, RFDS, is a charity organization established to provide healthcare and emergency services to the sparse population of Australia's outback. With 38 aircraft, the RFDS averages over 80 flights a day, helping more than 135,000 people per year.
What was the first tunnel through the Alps?
The Mont Cenis Railroad Tunnel was the first tunnel through the Alps and the first major railroad tunnel in the world. Opened in 1871, the tunnel spanned 8.5 miles, 13.7 kilometers, and connected France and Italy.
What is The Hague?
The Hague is a city on the west coast of the Netherlands with an approximate population of 450,000. The Hague is the home of many international organizations, such as the International Court of Justice.
Where are the Windward Islands?
The Windward Islands are located in the Caribbean and are exposed to the northeast trade winds. Northeasterlies, of the Atlantic Ocean. Because of their vulnerability to these winds, the islands were named the Windward Islands. The Windward Islands include Martinique, Saint Lucia, Saint Vincent, the Grenadines, and Grenada.
When was January 1st chosen as the beginning of the year?
In Caesar's calendar modifications of 46 CE, he decreed that the year would begin on January 1st instead of March 25th, as it had in the past. At that time Caesar also designated number of days in each month, unchanged to the present day.
Which Middle Eastern country has the largest population?
Egypt is the most populous country in the Middle East, with over 75 million people. Just behind Egypt is Iran, with over 71 million people, followed by Turkey, with over 70 million people.
What is the busiest airport outside of the United States?
Heathrow Airport in London, England, has more than 62 million passengers passing through the various terminals annually. This is followed by Charles de Gaulle International Airport near Paris, France, with 54 million travelers. And Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam, the Netherlands, with 47 million passengers.
Which country has the world's highest population density?
Macau, a former Portuguese colony consisting of a peninsula and 2 islands off the southern coast of China near Hong Kong, has the highest population density in the world. There are 538,000 people living in an 11 square mile area, 28.8 square kilometers.
What is the Organization of African Unity?
Founded in 1963, the Organization of African Unity helped strengthen and defend African unity across the continent. The 53 member countries sought to increase development and economic unity within and between member countries. It was disbanded in 2002 by South African President Thabo Mbeki when the new African Union was created with the same 53 member states. The African Union seeks to integrate political and socio-economic interests of the member states, speaking with a common voice on issues involving Africa. Its headquarters is in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
How do CFCs destroy ozone?
When CFCs rise up in the atmosphere to the ozone layer, ultraviolet rays break them down into bromine and chlorine, which destroy ozone molecules.
Why do some countries choose not to join the United Nations?
A country must be willing to give up some of its self-rule for the greater good, which often means the good of the larger, Western countries.
What factors affect population growth?
Many factors affect the growth in population, including an increase in marital age, increasing education level, increased acceptance of the use of contraceptives in much of the world, wars and military action, and genocide.
What is Africa's most populous country?
Nigeria, with a population of 148 million people, is Africa's most populous country. Nigeria is also the world's 8th most populous country. If Nigeria's population continues to increase at the present rate, the population will increase to 214 million by the year 2022. The average Nigerian woman gives birth to 6.1 children in her lifetime.
Who designed and planned the capital of Brazil?
Brasilia was created in 1956 by two people, urban planner Lucio Costa and architect Oscar Niemeyer.
Are there more people or sheep in New Zealand?
There are just over 4 million people in New Zealand, but nearly 56 million sheep. New Zealand has long been a leading exporter of wool.
Will another large asteroid strike the Earth?
Yes, asteroids have struck the Earth in the past and are likely to strike again in the future. Small asteroids strike the planet about every 1,000 to 200,000 years. Large asteroids are much less likely to threaten the planet. They strike only about 3 times every million years. Huge asteroids, such as the one that may have killed dinosaur species, are even less frequent.
Why does Hawaii have interstate highways?
Since any freeway funded under the Federal Aid Highway Act of 1956 is known as an interstate highway. Whether it crosses state boundaries or not, Hawaii can have interstate highways. Though they cross no state borders, Hawaii has 3 interstate highways, H1, H2, and H3.
What are the Alps?
The Alps are Europe's most famous mountain chain. Running east-west for approximately 700 miles, 1,125 kilometers. The Alps stretch from southeastern Spain to the Balkans, and include Mont Blanc, the highest point in Western Europe.
When did the Suez Canal begin to operate?
After a decade of construction, the Suez Canal, built by the French, opened on November 17, 1869. The 101-mile-long, 162.5-kilometer-long, canal cuts through northeastern Egypt, making a passageway for ships to sail between the Mediterranean Sea and the Red Sea, which leads to the Indian Ocean.